All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's cybersecurity session sponsored by Aura. I'm here today with Shelby. You should see on the screen now from Aura. And today we're going to be talking about safe cyber delegation and having conversations with caregivers surrounding cybersecurity so you can stay safer online. What we will cover today in today's session. So first of all, we're going to have a bit of a refresher on fraud, scams, and hacks. So tactics, signs, and consequences of these, just to kind of reiterate some of the stuff we've covered already quickly about cybersecurity. And then we'll jump into involving caregivers in online safety, things like account security, getting second opinions, creating action plans, and then also potential risks of involving caregivers. We're going to cover all of that. So why should you talk about cybersecurity? So for those of you who are here, who are older adults are at a higher risk of being targeted by online scammers and hackers. This may come from the, perception that older adults might be more trusting, maybe not as tech savvy, or have age-related cognitive or physical impairments that make them easier targets. Obviously, not all of this is the case with you. We're all on this talk, so you're proactive, you're cyber savvy and all of that. But, people in our lives might not be so savvy, and a lot of predatory people online will take advantage of that. Now, being proactive about how you protect yourself online can stop a bad situation before it happens. And having that additional support of friends, family, or professional caregivers can help you protect your digital life even further. You can think of this person sort of as a digital bodyguard, right? Someone who's just out there looking out for you a bit more than maybe we sometimes look out for ourselves. And this is really important because so much of our information gets stored online, especially if we engage in things like online shopping, banking, or social media. And so we have to take these steps to protect ourselves. And again, we may not always be the best equipped to handle some of these threats ourselves. We may feel uncertain about how to implement cybersecurity advice we have been giving. And getting a second pair of eyes on our digital safety from someone we trust can really be instrumental in our overall online protection. So before we get into kind of these tips, I do want to revisit some of the basics of things we covered in previous sessions, and I'm sure you've heard about in terms of cybersecurity, so we can get an idea of the landscape and some of the things that we should be having conversations about with our loved ones. So three main threats kind of generalized here to talk about. First of all is phishing. So I'm sure you've heard of phishing. This is a type of imposter scam in which fraudsters generally pretend to be someone they're not. Usually this is a representative from a trusted company or government organization, and they do this in order to get you to give up sensitive information and money or click on links to malicious websites. Now, this can happen through a number of ways, through phone calls, fraudulent text messages, social media messages, emails, or even fake websites. And the goal of this is, again, to get you to click generally on a link. So you may get an email from Facebook saying you need to reset your password immediately because your old one is expired, but it's not really from Facebook, it's from someone else. And that's someone trying to lead you into a site where they can then collect information from you on accounts that you have. They may also get you to do things like download an attachment and they'll disguise it, and it'll actually be malware or viruses. And then they can get into your system and steal information. And stuff like that. So that's phishing. Often we're seeing this happen, again, most often through messages. So email, maybe a social media message, text, phone calls. And this is a super common type of scam that everyone is inundated with constantly day to day. I get a ton every day, and I'm sure you do too. Next, we have this category of social engineering scams. So otherwise known as kind of human hacking. So people use this often to commit fraud or identity theft, and they'll use deceptive psychological manipulation to instill fear, excitement or urgency. This might be something like the grandparent scam, where you get a call from someone claiming to be your grandchild, and they're in trouble and they need money. This could also include things like romance scams. So anything that is using, social relationships in order to fraud you into giving away money or information that you don't want to give away. A lot of the times, these people might pretend to be trusted authorities or companies, much like in phishing. The goal here might be more direct, of directly asking for money and stuff like that. And then lastly, a kind of other category, I'll just put a bunch in this category of hacking. So I'll include in this is kind of identifying and then exploiting weaknesses in a computer system or network or on an account to gain unauthorized access to personal information or financial information. So maybe this is through a weak password that someone was able to crack, or they've obtained passwords to your account some other way. This might be through an unsecure internet connection. Maybe you're connecting to the internet at an airport or some sort of transport system, or it could be through an unsecure website that doesn't have that HTTPS safety protocol in it. So those are kind of some of the main risks that we see most often, and we're kind of threatened by on a daily basis. And the signs of these kind of overall signs to look out for, again, just as a reminder of things. One, unexpected contact. So anytime you're especially online and you get some sort of unexpected contact, that is something to be wary of right away, especially to be wary of it if it comes from an unrecognized contactor, someone you don't know, haven't had contact with before. So maybe an unfamiliar phone number, an unfamiliar email. That being said, it may also be something that looks familiar and that they're posing as someone else, so something to also pay attention to there. A big kind of common thing with a lot of these things, especially social engineering and phishing, is emotional manipulation, preying emotions, trying to get you to act quickly, not think, by instilling maybe a sense of urgency that something will go wrong, or else making you feel scared about something, or even in something like romance scams, making you feel like there's a love connection, right? Threats from the police or the FBI, and claim that a warrant will be put out for your arrest if you don't comply. So any sort of scary threat that would cause you to have to take immediate action or threaten you in some sort of way unless you act. And again, a lot of these things are pointing towards, especially these two last ones, emotional manipulation, saying that you need to act right away. And again, they may push the sense of urgency through stuff like emotional manipulation and threats. Asking for money, generally, if someone asks you for money and you don't know them, or there's any of these other corresponding elements like an unexpected contact, an unrecognized contactor, any sort of manipulation or sense of urgency, that is to be wary of. And especially if it's online, always be wary if someone's asking you for money online, and especially if they're asking for it in unusual ways. So they're not asking it for directly. Maybe they're asking for it through a wire transfer, a gift card, or cryptocurrency, which is really, really common now. So some weird way of obtaining the money that they want you to send it. Now, again, this really is a big one for both, again, phishing and social engineering, is grammatical errors. So again, whether this is a phishing email from a person posting as the IRS, or else it's even some sort of romance scam or otherwise, grammatical errors. A lot of the time, these jobs are rushed because they're sending out so much content, they're not really checking things properly. Another thing is, a lot of these attacks are not coming from within the US or Canada. They may be coming from somewhere else where English is not the first language, and that is common. And so that might be a portion of it. So grammatical errors, signs of a kind of broken English, or just generally sentences that don't really quite feel right or not in the correct tone for what you would expect from the type of person who may be contacting you. And sketchy links generally. So this kind of goes along with sense of urgency, being pushed towards links, any sort of link file, maybe even a QR code in an email or text you should be concerned about. And especially if you then visit it and it does not contain https:// and it doesn't have the padlock near the URL when you're on it on the web browser. So something to look out for. Always make sure you're accessing safe websites. And then lastly, unsecure connections is another thing to be wary of and look out for. So by this, I mean, we're using things like public Wi-Fi networks. So if you're using a public Wi-Fi network, say you're at a cafe or else somewhere else, do ask the people working there what their network is before signing on to a random network. Don't just select a network because it's not password protected, right? So if you're at a cafe, ask them what the correct network is. And then even if you are connecting to a network like that, and you've confirmed that it is the one that's owned by the cafe or the library or whatever, still maybe use something like a VPN or take additional precautions and just don't access sensitive information on those networks. So that was a bit of a quick recap of some of the things we've already covered. Now let's talk about some of the consequences of these scams. So if you are a victim of scam or fraud or hacking, it can cause any of the following, right? Identity theft, damaged credit score, more spam calls and emails. Maybe the first attempt was not so effective by the person, but you did engage to some degree. That can lead you to be more targeted because they see you as someone who is easily manipulated or easily convinced. Stolen benefits or tax refunds, and then additionally, psychological harm and emotional distress. So the consequences of these can be severe, and they can be lasting, and they can be really upsetting. And so it's important for that we have support. So that brings us to how to involve caregivers in your online security. So I do want to start by saying with this, again, whether you're someone who has a caregiver or you are a caregiver yourself, and this is kind of targeted at people who are talking to a caregiver that they have, but this should be noted by people who are caregivers. Start the conversation on your terms. Remember, if you're a caregiver or if you, again, it can feel invasive to be told we need support we didn't ask for. It can feel like overstepping. It can feel like monitoring that's not necessary, and it can be quite sensitive. So starting the conversation with your caregiver on your own terms can feel empowering. And again, for caregivers, remembering that starting the conversation and making sure it's on the terms of the person you're talking to and, making them feel like you're not overstepping is really important. And the last thing is being knowledgeable about what your needs are is key to maintaining those boundaries. So if you want to open up a conversation about cybersecurity with a loved one, knowing what are the things, the specific risks and threats that you are looking out for and need help with or else want to help with, and how can you do it? So you're not overstepping into something that feels maybe more monitory or personal, that really is about safety and security and not about some sort of other form of control. So 3 steps for setting boundaries that we should remember, again, on either part. Visualize and name your limits. So understand what you're asking for help for and what the support is you want before you have the conversation. And then openly communicate those boundaries. So talk about, these are the things I need, and this is what I don't feel comfortable with and I don't need, and I'd rather, us avoid, or whatever it is. And then as you do this, continually, you may have to reiterate and uphold your boundaries. In this case, it can be helpful when you're having a conversation with a caregiver, with someone you're caring for, to maybe write things down, set up boundaries that you both agree to. And, if you need to, revisit it from time to time to assess, hey, are these working for us? Is this making this relationship healthy, or is it getting into a territory where either of us feel taken advantage of or uncomfortable? All right. So with that said, here are some things to consider in terms of how you might involve a caregiver in this cybersecurity plan. So first of all, maintain open lines of communication. As we already kind of talked about, start the conversation and keep it open. Don't leave it shut. Try to have it be a continual conversation and not just, you're not allowed to do this and that's the end of it, right? Have it be a continual conversation that you're having and not just some hard and fast rules that, someone's not allowed to do these or you're going to have access to this account. Have it be a continual conversation. A great way you can involve someone in your cybersecurity, and again, anyone, is just to ask them to alert you of anything fishy happening on your social media or from your email. So say, hey, can you be on the lookout if you see anything weird being posted on my social media, anything weird being liked that, doesn't seem like me, or if you're getting strange emails from me. Let me know if you see anything like that. This happened to my partner the other day. Her Twitter got hacked and her brother let her know. And then we went in and changed the passwords, right? But she's not really looking at that account that often. She doesn't use it. But it was good to have someone there who was just on it, messaged her, look, I think something's going on. So a really easy first step there. Just let people know that if anything like that happens, I want you to let me know. Ask them not to share your personal information on social media. We talked about this a lot on our last session about sharing personal information online and how that can be used by malicious actors, right, to commit frauds, to get to know information about you so they can, do such social engineering frauds and stuff like that. So ask them not to share your personal information on social media. And likewise, if they ask you not to, don't share their personal information on social media. Set up accounts together and walk through how to use them, especially if you or the person you're caring for is not as tech savvy and say they're getting involved in online banking for the first time. And so they may not be the most, knowledgeable about it. If that's the case, set them up together, walk through how to use them, and both be aware of what threats are and what the security kind of protocols are for that account. So if you know that someone you love is engaging in online banking, you should maybe also understand what the safety precautions is that they should be taking. So if they ask for help or if they need more help in terms of monitoring and accessing the account, you also are knowledgeable about it. So you can share that information and knowledge back and forth. Set up multi-factor authentication on accounts. So you can have a caregiver help you set up multi-factor authentication on accounts so that it sends you a code by call or text message when you log in as an extra level of security. If you don't if it requires, say, a cell phone or something to do that and you don't have one, you may ask them to set it up on their device so they can help you. But it's a big thing and it can be kind of tricky sometimes to set up. So ask for that help in terms of just setting up those initial protocols that are going to make your accounts safer. Keep your password secure. And if you feel comfortable doing so, share your password securely with your loved ones so they can help you with your accounts. And consider using an online password manager. And you can even get one that's a shared family account. And Aura has one that's great. Or you can keep passwords listed in a secure locked location at home, written down by hand. And maybe it's a place where you can access them, but also, again, the caregiver that you trust also can access them so that in case anything does happen and they do need to access to help you, that they can and are able to. But that being said, this is an important area to set that boundary, right? You may say, I feel comfortable sharing access to online accounts that have to do with, say, like financial information. Because for me, I'm not worried about that. I trust them on that level. And I want to be able to get help with it. But I don't feel comfortable with social media because I have a lot of personal conversations and I don't want them sifting through that and reading those conversations that are personal to me or whatever it is. So just make sure you know what those boundaries are and where you set the line on this, right? Full out access to all of your accounts may not be something that you want, but maybe certain accounts that may be more vulnerable are something that you do want an extra set of eyes on for help. Share stories. Skip one. Shred any old documents containing personal information and ask them to do the same, especially if your caregiver helps you handle your documents. Make sure you're both shredding old ones. So whether you have a bunch of documents at home, maybe you have them stored somewhere else with a caregiver, and make sure if you no longer need those documents and they contain sensitive or personal information, and they're not, something that you want to keep on holding on to, shred them before you dispose of them. And share stories of scams you see in the news. So places like AARP has helpful resources for this, and you can sign up for their Fraud Watch network for alerts about scams, especially those targeting older adults. Many local news stations also will cover common scams as they come up. And this makes everyone more safe and aware. So being aware of those stories, accessing that information, and then sharing those stories with people. I know I have a couple of people maybe who are on this call who occasionally share with me over email common scams and threads that they see popping up. And that is a really helpful way, not only to help yourself so that you know what to look out for and folks know what to look out for you, but also to help your community. So engaging in that kind of community approach to cybersecurity by educating people and keeping people informed. And ask questions and share suspicions. So again, if you're not sure about something, just ask, get a second opinion. If you feel suspicious about something, whether it's something on your account or again on the account of someone who you're caring for, share that suspicion. If it's something on your account, talk about it. If it's something on the account of, say, someone you're caring for, do be aware that you might want to be a bit sensitive around this. Again, even if it's just like a random spam post, things like this can feel sensitive. We don't want to overstep and make someone feel like they don't know best, or that, we're kind of talking down to them about anything. So when you do share suspicions or do stuff like that to someone you're caring for, just be sensitive about how they might react and try to approach it with no shaming. And as we kind of talked about, really important is just getting a second opinion. So as soon as you feel like some sort of situation you're in is maybe nefarious, you're not sure, it seems sketchy, get a second opinion. If a spam caller makes you feel pressured to act now, if you get a scary email or a pop-up, call your caregiver for a second opinion. Don't feel like you need to go it alone. Be collaborative. And don't feel embarrassed to talk about these things with a trusted caregiver. They affect everyone regardless of age. And not so maybe fun fact for you, young people are actually some of the most likely to get scammed. Right? We talk about older adults a lot being victims of scams. It's actually young people are more affected. So this can affect anyone. So important to remember that and not feel embarrassed to reach out for help or ask if you suspect a scam. Remember too, especially if your caregiver is maybe younger than you, they may be more of a digital native. So they may just know more readily signs of scams. They may have more exposure to it because they just probably have more exposure to the internet generally. And things we might want to get second opinions on, right, is things like whether to click a link, whether to share personal information, just generally whether something seems like a scam, whether to send money, and whether something is true or false. Things come to misinformation as well. And take preventative measures. So things you can do, and again, you can recruit a caregiver to help you with this, especially because some of these things might take a while and they might just be kind of annoying to do, like saving all your frequent contacts in your phone. If they're not already, building up that contact book can take a while, especially say if you're transferring them from a pen and paper kind of contact book onto a digital device. So ask for help with that. Sign up for a do not call registry. These are really important. Make sure that you do this and people in your life do this as well, so you're not affected. I think Shelby is going to put some links for these in the chat for the Canadian one from the CRTC and the National Do Not Call Registry in the US. And consider using a secret family password. So this helps avoid falling victim to a grandparent scam, for example. So if you have a lot of contacts with your family, maybe a secret phrase that you use when you're on the phone with them, we can ask them for if you ever feel suspicious, so that you're not falling victim, especially to those scams that may happen, over the phone with someone posing as a loved one or a family member. And again, consider using an all-in-one safety tool with family sharing functions like Aura. You can buy family plans for security so that all that information is in one place that's accessible by everyone. And so you can keep an eye out for each other. And keep an inventory of all your online accounts and financial accounts and appropriate contacts. Now, this is not to say keep this out in the open with passwords, just what accounts you have. We tend to have so many accounts online. I'm sure there are many that I've lost and can't find anymore for me. So keep an inventory of the accounts you create. And again, who the appropriate contact is, whether it's an email or a phone number for that specific account, especially things like online banking, so that if you do get a call, you can easily go reference, that's the account, that's the number I should be being called from, or that's the email I should be being contacted from. And then I also know who to reach out to if I have issues. And create a reaction checklist. You can maybe even write this down near your computer so you remember how to react again, so you don't get caught up in sometimes the fear or the pressure to act right away. So 1, stop, take a moment and think about the situation. Think about if it feels suspicious, leave. If it's a phone call, hang up. If it's someone at the door, close the email. If someone is pressuring you to act now, they could be a fraud, so leave. Ask, call a family member for advice, search online for more details, see if people are reporting similar incidents, or find out the organization you're speaking to are real. And you can also ask for identification. If they're saying that they are a certain organization, locate the actual phone number, call them, and see if that was a legitimate call. Wait, take time to absorb what you've learned and make a plan of action. Don't rush any decisions. Read things carefully, especially when it comes to things like, emails, like phishing emails. You are not at risk for receiving that email. You are not at risk for opening that email. You put yourself at risk the moment that you respond to that email, click on a link, click on an attachment. So as long as you consider it carefully, you're not at risk. Take your time. You don't need to act right away. And act. Only visit legitimate websites and call verified safe phone numbers. You can use independent review websites and email address lookup services to check someone's identity. So take proactive action in doing research and figuring out, is this a common scam that I'm experiencing? Oftentimes you'll find these answers online. If you Google, it's probably somewhere on Quora or Reddit. Someone's already having a conversation about this, that this is a scam. And discuss your incident action plan. So if something does happen, God forbid, and you do fall victim to something, have a plan and make sure that you're aware of it. And again, your caregiver is aware for it, so you can act together and make sure that you put this plan into action as soon as possible after the incident. So document all the evidence, recordings, receipts, screenshots, right? Go back. You don't want, something to disappear because it was in a private chat and then you can't retrieve it because, maybe they've deleted their account on whatever platform you were using. Take screenshots, recordings, receipts. Know how and who to report the incident to, the FBI, local police, FTC, etc. Know who that is. Know it for yourself. Again, your caregiver, because there might be a case in which, something happens and in the moment of it happening, you're too distraught to act. So you want to share this plan with someone else so they can act on your behalf if in the moment it seems too difficult for you, or maybe you haven't quite recovered from the trauma of it. It can be helpful to both know that plan so it can be put into action on either side. Set a credit freeze and alert your bank, your credit card company immediately, and change your passwords immediately. And again, if you have those additional support set up where, they know your passwords to certain accounts, especially ones that might be more at risk, that again, if it comes to the point where, maybe you're too distraught to deal with it, they can go ahead and set that plan into action for you. And this is kind of the last tricky part of this. You should know that sometimes caregivers can't be trusted. Unfortunately, we know that those closest to us are most likely to be the ones to take advantage of us or commit abuses. And this is the same when it comes to fraud and stuff. So this happens. So we do have to be careful. And it's sometimes not a stranger, right? So if you're hiring an external caregiver, ensure that they have references and background checks, and maybe take time to them before you share information. Don't jump in right away. The same way we'd act, with any other relationship. And always trust your instincts. If something feels off, even with family, trust yourself, right? Again, that's why it's so important to set those boundaries, because boundaries are not only a great way for you to just, create a healthy relationship and a healthy line of communication, but also a great way to kind of test other people, right? If you set boundaries and someone is consistently unable to respect them, that is something that gives you a lot of information right away, right? And watch for red flags. So some things that we can watch out for when it comes to caregiver who maybe doesn't have our best interest at heart or is asking for or demanding you take immediate action. Again, like stuff like that. Also just constantly crossing boundaries. Being asked or encouraged to sign a power of attorney or give away control of your finances or medical choices. So overstepping, especially if you are sound of mind and you understand that that is not something you need. If you're constantly trying to fight against that, or you don't feel like it's something you need yet, but they are telling you said something you need, even though you're aware that you don't.
Unexpected debt collection notices.
Unfamiliar accounts or mysterious charges on your credit reports, especially if you've given them access to sort of financial information. An unexpectedly lower credit score, credit applications being denied, and alerts about new accounts. So things that you can watch out for in that.
All right, be proactive and take precautions. So keep sensitive documents locked away and out of sight and shred any you no longer need, especially potentially, if you have a paid caregiver who you're not as familiar with yet and don't necessarily trust yet. Keep those away until you feel like you're in a good position, or maybe always keep them kept away or shred them. Keep smartphones and other digital devices locked with strong passwords. We're always going to come back to the strong password thing. It really is so important. So make sure you have a strong password, and always be monitoring your financial accounts and credit reports. This can tell you a lot and help you look out for things. And consider things like family and identity theft protection. Aura offers services like this, and it includes things like credit and financial account monitoring, safe browsing tools to alert you of suspicious websites, dark web monitoring, which will check for any passwords that may have been compromised that are out there, and a password manager to help you manage those strong passwords that hopefully you're going to be setting. And to access that, to get a discount on that product, you can visit them at aura.com/March webinar to access that discount. And it is just another line of defense that helps you, especially if you don't feel like you're able to take it all on your own. You don't need to. You have that added protection. So something to consider and check out if you're interested. And once again, thank you for listening. If you have any questions whatsoever about this topic, know that you can always call us at Cyber Seniors toll free at 844-217-3057, or you can visit us online at www.cyberseniors.org. And you can visit our cybersecurity center at www.cyberseniors.org/aura-cybersecurity.